two-story structure is pretty much gone in the front side, and things were buried. There are 2 or 3 cars out in front that can't be really distinguished. They're covered under bricks, and things are pretty much a mess.
Is this the building that is next to the J.C. Penney store in Hollister?
I heard that it was reported that J.C. Penney was destroyed. It's actually Ravella's gym, which is right adjacent to that on 4th.
Right, and that's the building you were in at the time.
Uh-huh.
That must have been a harrowing experience.
It was a harrowing experience for all of us.
As dawn broke the next morning, the early light of day revealed a wide swath of disaster. In Los Gatos, downtown buildings lay in rubble as residents, weary from a sleepless night, gathered water for the coming days. In Hollister, tons of bricks buried a car when the front wall of Ravella's gym simply broke away. The town clock there frozen in time. A stark reminder of the exact moment the earthquake hit.
As bulldozers began clearing debris, dazed citizens read newspapers, words telling stories they could simply look up and see. In 6 area food plants, tons of filled cans tumbled to the ground. The lost food would be valued at between $50 and $60 million.
In Santa Cruz, with National Guardsmen patrolling the streets, stunned residents looked on in disbelief. The heart of the city, the Pacific Garden Mall, lay in ruins. Ford's department store, gone. 75-year-old Catherine Tremaine died there under the debris. And gone, too, the historic Cooper House with its outdoor cafe, once a favorite downtown meeting place. And it would be a long time before Shockley's Jewelers would open again.
Somebody in there.
Somebody in there.
But the human toll was most apparent in the faces of worried friends waiting outside the Santa Cruz Coffee Roasting Company. A brick wall from Bookshop Santa Cruz fell through the roof there. The body of 21-year-old Sean McCormick had been pulled from the rubble immediately after the quake. Young Robin Ortiz was still missing, and friends feared she might be buried alive. But the unstable walls prevented authorities from searching, and it would be some time before worried friends knew whether she was alive or dead.
And the anguish was mirrored in Watsonville, where Elita Ortega died as the brick awning over the Bake Right Bakery crumbled to the ground. Elsewhere, crushed cars lay under flattened roofs. In homes, twisted and terribly askew, would never be home again. Some roads were barely passable, others not at all. The Pajaro Bridge was closed. There were many other stories of damaged buildings and narrow escapes, as John Lobertini reported.
It was a day for patching up and digging out. Michelle Underwood is just beginning to realize the quake's temper.
It's destroyed. I'm just glad my kids are okay. That's all that matters to me is my kids.
Kids and old folks alike just couldn't help but talk about the strongest shaker in ages to hit Watsonville. It was dinner time at John and Audrey Lubina's trailer.
She's handicapped, and I just told her to grab hold and hang on, and I was hanging on the refrigerator, and we couldn't move. It just threw us around, threw our bodies around just like a little rag.
Like an aluminum foil gum wrapper. Now there's a 4-foot gap between trailer and porch where before there was none. And at Watsonville Community Hospital, the tumbler caused major structural damage. The doorknob in the accounting department now sits at ground level, and the vibrations caused a hazardous chemical spill in the lab. Specialists had to be called in.
Just kind of stay back.
But with a broken wing of sorts, the hospital continues to treat patients.
So all the food and patient support supplies are going up and down the stairwell with couriers. And that's not going to be a workable long-term arrangement.
But repairs are believed possible, making for a good prognosis. But the mending process is going to take much longer for the ruptured water mains and down power lines. Emergencies that remain very much alive. PG&E restored power, but cautiously. Broken gas lines are the reason.
The Earth's violent shaking tore loose thousands of chimneys. While some stayed precariously perched high atop homes, many others came tumbling down. As Beverly Byer reported, Salinas was no exception.
The fireplace just caved in from the top and came through the inside. Most of it ended up inside on the floor.
The chimney collapsed only minutes after children moved into the next room at this house on Capitol Street. It also happened a block away, where the chimney is a skeleton of what it was, bricks scattered on the roof. The old area of Main Street was under inspection first thing this morning. Building Inspector Ray Campton. Ray, what are you checking out?
We had a report of some crack and some broken plaster around here. I want to take a look at it.
How does it look from far?
All right. Right over here, it's not bad. It's just very light. This is a reinforced concrete building.
So it's in good shape.
So far. See, with the naked eye up here, you got broken bricks up here. All this is just a veneer over the top of the actual building itself. But it's flaking off.
Yeah.
And if we had another trimmer, it could bring it down. Okay, they're going to tape it off around here, keep the traffic out of this area.
Inspector Louis Tan said the first check is the outside of the buildings, with specific things to look for, especially with buildings that have unreinforced masonry.
Such as a crack on the exterior of the wall, the separation of the joint on the separation of the joints on top of it there. Okay. If there is imminent danger, then we have to close the building.
Inspectors asked that employees who didn't go to their offices today be on the lookout for cracks inside the building when you go to work. Call the building inspectors if there's a problem. The 100 block of Main Street is closed off. Primarily, the reason is glass. John Saunders is with Gavilon Properties. They own this property. Bricks from an old Salinas City Bank building, which became part of the Caminos Hotel, fell. The mortar is bad. The bricks fell onto the roof of this now empty shop. From the rooftop, it's obvious the sky fell in.
All the windows blew out, and then a piece of the Caminos Hotel fell off on top of the roof and crushed the roof and caved it in. So there's probably going to be structural damage to the roof and the sides of the building.
What happens to it next?
Well, as you can see, the Caminos, that entire wall could fall on the building. And if that wall falls on the building, it's, tapioca for whoever's in there. So I think it's just going to have to remain vacant until they do something with the Caminos.
At the registrar's office, the step rose about an inch, according to Brad Clark, who pointed out the cracks there and recalled his reactions when the quake hit.
People started hitting the deck. I dove under my desk and rode it out as best I could. And then when the movement slowed, I got up, looked out the window, and could see just debris and dust and things flying from the direction of the Caminos Hotel.
The earthquake knocked out PG&E's Moss Landing power plant, which suffered major damage. In the huge 500-kilovolt switching yard, ceramic transformers, switchers, and wire tumbled into a mass of broken glass and twisted metal. And with the power out, many gas stations couldn't pump gas. Those that could were in high demand.
We're not filling. I'm just putting a little bit in so I got enough to get by. That's all. Fort Ord has no gasoline right now. We're coming from Fort Ord. So we're over here just to get enough to get by. And that's what they should have done for everybody here. Instead of letting them fill the tanks, just let them get $6 or $7 to hold them over, because they're going to get wiped out.
As the first full day after the earthquake drew to an end, power returned to some areas, but for thousands in Watsonville, normal was fast becoming a canvas tent in a park and tortillas warmed on a makeshift grill. As relief agencies set up emergency shelters, some came in from the cold. Many more preferred the safety of outdoors. Over the next few days, their plight would touch many, like this man.
I said I wish I could do more. There's just so much need. Just driving through the streets here in Watsonville, you can see homes are off their foundations, and many people are displaced. And this is just the first thing that came to mind. It was to bring our tent down and at least help some people get out of the rain tonight.
There really is.
While some helped and some suffered, some simply waited. And in Santa Cruz, the waiting became too much for the friends of Robin Ortiz, still missing in the coffee roasting company cave-in. When work in the dangerous building stopped on Wednesday night, they took to the streets.
Don't stop the roasting company! Don't stop the roasting company! Don't stop the roasting company! Don't stop the roasting roasting company. Don't stop the roasting company. Don't stop the roasting company.
And when the protests led to confrontation, 2 people were arrested. It was the culmination of a terrible frustration, of a painful, desperate wait. Tomorrow would be another day.
It was a new day, but as the digging at the coffee company got underway, wheelbarrows filled with bricks and debris carried a silent, sad message. The missing woman would not be found alive.
A third body has been recovered from the ball. The second body in the coffee roasting company. It is the body of 22-year-old Robin Ortiz. Not suffer. You need to know that. She would have been killed instantly. A mark, deep smell, and she never would have known what happened.
Though it was not unexpected, the announcement was devastating for Robin's friends. Hers would be the last body carried out of the debris of the Pacific Garden Mall.
But the nation's attention would return to the mall as President Bush came to see for himself the awesome force unleashed by the earthquake. Paul Johnsich was there.
With the mall cordoned off and the public being kept away, the president's motorcade pulled up at Pacific and Cathcart. Bush, Senator Pete Wilson, and Governor George Deukmejian greeting Red Cross officials and a host of local politicians who would lead him along a trail of destruction. With damage estimates for Santa Cruz County now topping $1 billion, there was lots to see.
This town, this community, spent $18,000 just in volunteer contributions to South Carolina just a handful of weeks ago, and here they are stricken. And I hope that the American people will respond with exactly the same compassion that this community showed to a state all the way across the country.
After the 20-minute tour, city leaders talked about whether they were satisfied with the presidential visit.
I got the clear impression that, first of all, he was shocked by the devastation that he saw. I think he's seen some devastation, obviously, in the Bay Area, but you've got concentrated devastation right here in a downtown area.
I know that this event is taking place in Santa Cruz, but he knows Watsonville now, and he knows we've got a duplication of the problems they have here.
So you got everything you wanted out of this visit?
My expectations were met.
I don't think there's any question that if we could come up with $1.1 billion for the victims of Hurricane Hugo, that we're going to be able to find $2 to $3 billion, at least initially, for the victims of this terrible earthquake here.
Bush wasn't the only leader drawn to the devastation. Governor Deukmejian toured the area and also promised help.
I've told them that at any time, if they find any difficulties, any unnecessary red tape developing as it relates to any of these relief programs, for them to be in touch with us in the governor's office.
There was plenty of help needed. Joanne Merrigan told us about growing problems in Watsonville's 10th city.
The rain coming down. These small tents, the only thing many have for protection. And officials saying with the wet weather, it's not enough.
Anyone want to go to the fairgrounds where it's warm and dry and food?
Today, Red Cross volunteers trying to encourage many to go inside to shelters. They say the shelters set up at the fairgrounds is
pretty empty. Yeah, there's lots of supplies, lots of food. Everything they need. I've been last few days trying to transport those goods to these people. We got a number of tents set up yesterday, thank goodness.
It's a real problem. You got a dry place out there and you don't have anybody in it.
Yeah, it's a situation.
Dengler says many are afraid to go inside. Others want to stay close to their damaged homes and their belongings. This woman could not be convinced to go even though she is wet and cold.
Because I want to keep an eye on my house.
You have all your stuff there?
Yeah. A little bit, but it's my stuff.
Still, officials want the campers to move here to Ramsey Park, where they say conditions are better.
It's dry enough. It's not cold. It's almost like a house.
We do have shelter space available. We are having teams of people go out and try to encourage people to come into shelters. We have a tent set up at Ramsey Park. We're getting more of those. We have them out at the fairgrounds as well.
Mel says the big concern now is that continued wet weather will not only make people uncomfortable but sick. She's especially concerned about children.